I would love to invite you to take a walk with me down memory lane, back to your favorite childhood memory. Maybe it was making a lemonade stand on the hottest day of summer, or learning how to fish with dad on a family vacation, or even learning grandma's secret chocolate chip cookie recipe. For me, my favorite memory takes place in spring. Anytime that my sister and I were bored, my parents would shove us out the door and say, "Bye, have fun. We'll call you back when it's time for dinner." And we were so lucky to live across the street from a park with a beautiful field. And there is where my sister and I would spend hours, and I mean hours, catching ladybugs. Once we had caught about 100 or so, my sister and I would take our bug catcher over to our sweet neighbor Roberta's house, and we would sell them to her for the sweet deal of $1. It's safe to say that that is where I got my entrepreneurial heart. Even though I don't have children of my own, I am so lucky to be to nanny 3 beautiful, amazingly bright girls. I am so blessed with my childhood that I wanted to, no, I needed to recreate my childhood memories with them. And that is where my obsession started. So this is a safe space, and I would like to confess something to you. I used to be the iPad nanny. Anytime the kids were bored, I would take out my iPad and I would put a game on, and they would be entertained for hours. If I was feeling tired or stressed, I would turn on my trusty TV, and I knew that they would be entertained again. I know this is the experience of many caregivers, but one day, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Life was passing us by, and there was so much more beyond the screen that was right in front of us. The convenience of technology was robbing those nostalgic memories from those kids. Pretty soon, every single day, ordinary experiences were becoming extraordinary experiences, like riding onto the escalator or the moving stairs, as the 4-year-old would call it, or even just drawing with a brand new box of crayons. We were learning how to live life again. So how can we create these nostalgic moments for kids today? It is no secret that our kids are growing up absolutely wired. They are experiencing life through a 2-dimensional screen that's only touching 2 of our 5 senses, seeing and hearing. But what about the other 3 senses? What about the smell of grandma's cookies, the touch of that slimy fish, or even the taste of that quenching lemonade on a hot summer day? Again, they're living life through the iPad. We were so lucky to be able to interview many parents that are raising kids in this iPad era. And we found out some shocking things, like parenting is hard, especially in an iPad era. But I mean, duh, we already knew that. So I shared with them a study where in the Erickson Institute, they surveyed 1,000 parents with kids under the age of 6. And they found out that 72% of parents had really big concerns about their kids and technology usage, especially when it comes to taking away from outdoor activities or taking away from creativity or creative play, and also, of course, disrupting their sleep patterns. I couldn't imagine having a kid that was absolutely wired. Another interesting thing we found out is that parents have a really negative association with boredom. They feel like they're doing something wrong or they're not doing enough. There's this pressure to always have your kids be entertained. Parents have to be the perfect Pinterest parent. But in reality, boredom actually teaches us so much, right? How are kids going to learn how to self-soothe? How are they going to learn about solitude? How are they going to learn about boredom? Boredom needs to exist. Valerie Strauss is a psychologist that studies children and creativity. And she found that over the past few years, there's been a major decrease in child's creativity. In order to combat that creativity, we must recognize that children are not necessarily born creative. When we say that children are born creative, we're taking away that responsibility for parents and caregivers to foster a creative environment for them. Let boredom exist. Boredom is the way for our brain to tell us that we need something stimulating in our environment. And if we don't have anything stimulating in our environment, guess what? We're going to create it. Another interesting thing that our parents told us is that technology is the most and cheapest babysitter, super reliable. I know where my kids are. They are in the living room. They are on the couch, watching TV on their iPad within arm's reach. The world is a very dangerous place. But is the world actually more dangerous than it used to be? Let's take a look. Missing children have gone down 40% since 1997. And actually, most children that are missing are runaways. They're not childhood abductions. Additionally, children that are out playing in the street are way less likely to be hit by cars. Think about how many smart cars are out there. So we should be letting kids play outside. I would like to argue that perhaps the internet is more of a dangerous place. When you think about it, you can log on to any social media platform and you can find a missing children's story instantly. You get so many stories about how the world is so much more dangerous than it was yesterday. When you think about children that are online, there's so many things that to be worried about. Predators, bullying, self-image, and also the fact that teenagers, when they post things, they're not really thinking about the consequences. Speaking of consequences, I wonder what percentage of that 72% of parents are actually doing something about their concern with screen time. We as a society are not deeply thinking about the consequences of technology for our children. I am willing to bet that almost every single one of your childhood memories involves some kind of human interaction. In homes that allow screen time, it is so important to make sure that you are monitoring your screen time. Child psychologists and child developmental experts stress the importance of making sure that you are conscientious about your children's screen time and it doesn't affect the most important part of child development, human interaction. Also, if you haven't noticed, teens nowadays are the most connected teens ever in history. But then I would like to ask, how come anxiety and depression have absolutely skyrocketed for that generation? How come we have the highest levels of teenage suicide ever in history? And it's because technology can never and will never replace human interaction. So, I know you must be thinking, I am Miss Anti-Technology, but I'm not. I actually work for a top technology influencer, and I use technology every single day to educate, engage, and empower. There's absolutely nothing more fulfilling than finding technology content that empowers and fulfills your children's passion. But I think we can all agree that there's nothing like the experience of touching all of your 5 senses in something that is so immersive. What I'm really looking at here is a balance of healthy technology consumption, being intentional about technology, being intentional even about boredom. So how can we cultivate an environment where boredom and passion meet, in spite of the fact that technology is a convenient siren in our culture today? Now imagine if there was something or someone that could assess the gaps in your daily life and also take into account the uniqueness of every single person in your family and find those opportunities to create those family nostalgic moments. I would like to introduce you to Reprogram Boredom. Reprogram Boredom is a scheduling assistant that helps find those moments where you can typically reach for any type of technology and create the opportunity for nostalgic moments. Studies have shown that if you are able to keep a habit up for 3 weeks, you can either make it or break it. But if you continue that habit for another 90 days, you have made a lifestyle change. We are in the business of making lifestyle changes here. So give us 15 weeks so you can live life again with your family. Before we even get into the steps, I want to make sure that we all agree. We have to realize that unintentional technology usage has been robbing those ability to make those nostalgic moments. Once we've all come to that point, this is where we can start. The first step is to take our family assessment, or what I would like to call our family inventory. We will assess your technology consumption across the normal average family. We will also give you a family personality test. your interests, your passions, your different Enneagram type maybe. And then we will also take into account different experiences in your area, like parks and museums, and then our system will get right to work curating a list of activities that your family will enjoy. The next step will be to schedule. You're going to input into our scheduling system all the things in your daily life, anything from vet to doctor's appointments to soccer practice, whatever your life is made of. And we will fill in those gaps with the times where you would normally reach for technology, with intentional boredom, technology alternatives, imaginative prompts, and more. Perhaps this is what your schedule looks like. You have lunch with family, Bible study, the gym, doctor's appointments, work meetings, the whole 9 yards. But everything in yellow is something that our scheduling assistant will curate for you. We have your outdoor nature scavenger hunt that we provided for you. You have going through childhood photos and videos of everyone in your family, or even having a whole day that's called Entrepreneur Day, where you can tell your children, if you had a business, what would it be, and let's start to make it. Or my favorite, even starting to make your own secret chocolate chip cookie recipe from scratch, no instructions. At the end of the week, you will update and check in with us. The first thing you will do is, of course, update your schedule with all of your vet appointments again, all of those things. And then you will take our inventory workbook. Our inventory workbook is so important because that's a very dedicated family time at the end of each week. Here is maybe a sample of what it would look like. We will, of course, have an option to add photos of whatever you've created. And then we'll ask you some deep questions that are different every single week. Like, what is your most exciting experience of the week? What would you like to do again? What would you never do again? And my personal favorite question, when you are telling your grandkids about your life, what kind of experiences do you want to tell them about? I really love that aspect of telling your future generations what you did. That's something that's so interesting to me. The fourth step is arguably, in my opinion, the most important step. That is to invite other people and other family into your nostalgic community. When you invite others into your community, you are not only creating a community, but you are also creating accountability. Community and accountability are two of the most important things when you're overcoming any habit. And lastly, your 15 weeks are over. And my hope is that at the end of these 15 weeks, you have begun to live life again, and you will continue to use our system, and you've invited other people into your community. And so instead of reaching for the technology, you are reaching for those moments. So what have I learned over the past few weeks? I've learned that, one, I have become a lot more self-aware for myself. I've learned that I'm an Enneagram 2, and if you don't know what the Enneagram means, I would be a personality type that would be considered a helper. I tend to want to help everybody and extend help wherever I can, but at the same time, I can tend to overhelp to where I don't care about myself. Secondly, I want to maintain childlike wonder in every aspect of life. Especially naming 3 girls, I have learned a lot. I've learned the answer to so many why questions that I would have never thought to answer. The other aspect of this is that whenever you have curiosity, it allows for innovation because you are seeing so many different opportunities. As adults, we tend to only look forward, down, and side to side. But children, if you haven't ever noticed, they're always looking up. That's another thing that I've learned is that it's so easy to just kind of live your every single day life, but it's so important to look up to God and make sure that He is directing you in good times and bad. Lastly, listen first and speak last, especially when you're designing for somebody else. Feedback is so important, and it comes from such a vulnerable place. Whenever somebody is sharing something with you, it is so important to take that to deep consideration. Leaders often don't talk a lot when they're receiving feedback. They're always the ones that are asking questions. And lastly, failure is absolutely inevitable, but totally necessary. Whenever we are able to confront our failures, we are teaching our followers that we are seeing failure as an opportunity. And therefore, all followers will see that failure is an opportunity as well. I would like to leave you with this. The picture behind me, is of the 3 girls that I nanny. Aya, the oldest, Jana, the second oldest, and Dahlia, the third oldest, or I guess the youngest, but also the oldest, because they're about to have a new baby brother boy, as they call them. And this picture is actually in the exact field that I used to spend hours and hours with my sister catching ladybugs. And I know for these three girls that catching ladybugs in that field will forever be a nostalgic memory for them. Thank you.